Hello photography students, I'm going to be showing you today how to open photos into Camera Raw, how to use the different editing features, and then how to save them out through Photoshop. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to gather some photos and put it into my Camera Raw album. So I'm just going to select them. You can hold down click and then hold down shift and click on the end, or I can hold down control and then individually select certain photos you want to bring it to your folder. You can then right click and select move to, and so I created a new folder called Camera Raw, which is right here, or I can drag and drop it into it, which would move them into it. You can also do copy to if you want to make a copy. So I'm just going to do copy to and hit Camera Raw. And what it's going to do is it's going to make copies of these photos into that folder. So if I open this up, it'll be in the folder. So there's my photos. So what I would recommend doing first is to make duplicates of these. So again, just select all of these. You can press Control A or click and hold down Shift and click again at the end. And then right click and hit duplicate. And it's going to make copies of your photos like so. It will take a little longer on your PC. So on the one that says copy, I'm just going to right click on the photo or press Control and click. And then select Open in Camera Raw. So Camera Raw is a global editor for photography and photographs. And so there's some tools on the top. Each tool, if you hover over it, will tell you what it is. It should. Used to. Guess not. Okay. So maybe turn that setting off. So what we're going to do is go through the basic sliders, the different tabs here, and then the different tools. So first you got your temperature. So if you want to make things warmer or cooler, you can do that. If you want to go back to 0, just hit 0 in the box. You can change the tint. If you need to color correct, you can make it lighter or darker exposure. You can add contrast or reduce contrast. You can adjust how bright or how dark your highlights are, how light or how dark your shadows are. The whites are a bit more extreme. This red is the highlight clipping. You can turn that off so you can see what's going on. And vice versa, if I bring my blacks down, I can darken my shadows and my blacks. I can turn that highlight warning off here as well. So I'm just going to tap that back, put these back on. I like to actually see those because it tells me what information is being lost when I edit. A new feature is called texture. So you can see the texture will increase or decrease. So sometimes people like to reduce texture on skin. Sometimes people want to add texture to bring out the texture, surface texture. Clarity kind of wraps more, so you can bring out the clarity, make it more clear or less clear. Dehaze is a new feature, so you can basically, if you're kind of cutting through a foggy scene, you could cut through it, or you could add some haze. Vibrance is how bright the colors are. And saturation is how strong they are. So you can make it fully black and white or make it super saturated. The tone curve, if you wanted to adjust your highlights, lights, darks, and shadows on tone, you can basically adjust each one separately. So you can go through those 4. If you wanted to add sharpening to your photos, you can turn that on, increase the radius and detail, and you'll see some sharpening applied. I'm just going to put that back to 0. Noise reduction, if you took a really noisy photo at night with a high ISO, you can add some noise reduction. This photo doesn't have any because it's taken during the daytime, but you could add it if you had a noisy photo, like pixely kind of noise in your photos. So I'm just going to put those back like so. HSL is an important one, so if you want to individually change a color, you can change the hue of a color. So if I go into my blues, I can make my blues change colors, or I can add saturation to just one color, or decrease to one color. So sometimes if you want to do like a selective color look, you can reduce all the colors but one. So I'm just going to do the blues and then bring those up and get the cool selective color look. I'll just hit default. Luminance is how bright that color is. So if I want to lighten my blues or darken my blues, you could do that. Split toning is for putting a color in your highlights and shadows separately. So if I click on the saturation, I'll put one color in my highlights, click on saturation, and I can do a different color in my shadows. And so you can kind of see what it's doing here. Again, to reset it, just bringing the saturation back down to 0. Lens correction, that is if you're using a specific lens, you can click remove chromatic and enable profile corrections. If it has that specific lens, it'll do that. I wouldn't worry about that for now. It's kind of an advanced feature. FX is if you want to add grain. You can make it really big grain and more rough or super soft depending on the look you want. The vignette's what I use often, so you can make it white or dark. You can bring in the midpoint so it's in or out. You can change the shape from a square to a circle, or you can make it a super hard edge or super feathered, a feathered out edge. Highlights is just kind of protects, if you had a highlight in your edge, it kind of protects that. So I'm just going to bring that back to 0. Calibration is very advanced. It's something I wouldn't worry about. Same with your presets. If you wanted to create a preset, you could, and then it would remember it for the next time. So I'm just going to click back on my basic tab here. And then we got different tools up top. So I got my color picker if I wanted to pick a color. These are if I wanted to get specific readings that tell you the RGB information here in that specific area. I'm just going to clear that out. This one is if you wanted to do a specific curve on your photograph. I don't really use that one. The crop tool is pretty common, so if you click and drag, you can select your crop, and then basically get these little tabs either on the corners or the sides or the top that you can crop your photo in different ways. Once you're done, just hit enter or return and it will crop your photo. If some of you have a horizon that's crooked or you got like a vertical building that's crooked, this is the straighten tool. And so what you would do is if you had a horizon, you'd drag it across your horizon. If it was crooked, you'd double click and then it would straighten the photograph. So that's a very useful one. So I'm just gonna go and then I'm just gonna kind of just drag that straight back to normal. So the highlights are kind of level. There we go. This one is your transform tool. So if you wanted to adjust perspective, you could do that. Especially for architecture, it's very useful. Depending on how you shot your photograph, you could rotate it in various ways. You could change the aspect to fit a certain ratio if you needed to. You can make it bigger or smaller. And then basically if you needed to move it certain directions, you could. Not sure why they have that, but useful. This is your spot removal tool. So if I actually zoom in, I press Control plus and zoom in, Control minus to zoom out. And so with my spot correction tool, I can change the size here. And so I'm just going to hit visualize, no, not that. And so how it works is if you click on a photo, it's going to, you can kind of click the area you want to clean from. The one in Photoshop works quite a bit better, so I'm just kind of clicking on areas and it's kind of doing its best guess of how to clean it. So this one did a pretty good job. And so again, you could use these little brackets next to the letter P to change the size quickly, or I can change it here and then just kind of go through. You hold down the space bar, you get the little hand move tool, I can kind of move around. So I'm just going to hit that guy, this guy, this guy. So you can kind of clean up spots. So it's good for skin too. I'm just going to zoom out pressing Control minus. Okay. So then I'm just going to go to my red eye removal tool. If I had a picture where a flash happened at night and they got the red eyes, you can basically darken the red if you needed to. The adjustment brush tool is kind of useful. So again, if I can change the size, and the feather is basically how soft the edge is. And so I'm just going to paint an area here. And then I can basically, I'll just turn the highlight warning off. So I can change like just the temperature, basically do any adjustments is only going to happen in the area I paint, which is kind of nice. So if you want to do like paint a specific area with it, you could. I'm just going to hit clear all, and it's going to undo that, and then turn that off. The graduated filters, if you had like a sky, you wanted to kind of darken just the sky, you basically pull it down. And you can kind of see here, I'm just going to reset these to 0. And not to 0, not to 0. So then I could basically like just darken it and kind of darken just my sky, and it kind of goes from solid to clear. And so I'm just going to clear that out. The elliptical one is basically you're dragging like elliptical shape, and then you can move the center to it. And so if you want to kind of fade the bottom to the top, you could do that. Same thing, you can make adjustments here. I'm just going to clear that. And then basic rotations, and then trash can. So what you want to do now is I'm just going to go back to my main tool here. I'm just going to do some kind of global adjustments to my car. So I'm just going to bring up my shadows and maybe add some texture and clarity and dehaze, and then add some saturation. Maybe go in and add a vignette. So how you edit the photos are up to you. Just going to bring that in, and then kind of adjust my exposure a little bit. There we go. So it's looking pretty good. So if I want to save it in Camera Raw, I can go to Save Image, and I'll basically make a copy. So if I click Save Image, you just want to go through, select the folder you want to save it into. So right now, save it in the Camera Raw folder. If you want to change the name, you could. Make sure it's a JPEG format. Make sure your quality is between 10 and 12, so it's high quality, and then hit Save. And basically what it's going to do is going to save out a second file. Because this already is a copy, I'm just going to hit Cancel. Then I'm just going to go open this into Photoshop. So if I click Open Image on the bottom right, it's going to open the photograph into Photoshop. So then I just need to save it in Photoshop. So I'm going to go File, and then Save As. So it's already a copy, so I don't need to change the name. If I didn't save it as a copy, I could call it like V2 or copy, and then I'll save it as a new file. But I'm just going to hit Cancel because it's already a copy. So I'm just going to go File, Save As, Copy. It's in the Camera Raw folder. This might look a little different because you're on a PC, so I'm just make sure it's the folder. Make sure the JPEG format is JPEG. So the default is Photoshop, and you don't want that because you can't actually upload it to your Flickr. So change that to JPEG, and then you can actually upload that format to Flickr. And then that looks all good. So I'm just going to hit Save and Replace. I'm just basically copying all the settings from Camera Raw onto it and creating a new file with those settings. So hit Replace. Check your quality. So I usually go between a 10 and 11 or 12, and then hit OK. So then what we want to do is, this is my original and that's my after. If I hit the space bar, I can see a full screen before and after, so showing the changes. So then what I would want to do is go into Flickr and then upload these. So I'm just going to go to flickr.com and then log in. Gotta remember my password. I think this might be a different email. There we go. So now we're logging into Flickr. Hopefully. Cool. So again, what I need to do is upload those photos into Flickr. So I'm going to click on this little upload cloud up here in the upper right. I'm going to hit choose photos, or I could drag and drop them in. So if I selected these two, holding the command button or control button on the PC, and then I go and drag them over, I can drag and drop them in, or I could just click on that center tab and select them. So I'm just going to hit remove, and then you can also click here and then go to your folder. So I'm just going to go into Photo, Camera Raw, and then it is 7790. So I'm just going to go to that, and there's my original and my copy. So I'm going to choose both of those. I want to see both the original and the after. And so then if I want, I could add it to an album. Just make sure these are both selected. If they're not, just hold down Control and then select each one, and then click Add to Albums. If only one's selected, only one will go into the album. So I'm just going to create a new album called Camera Raw, and then I would just put your name and period in the description and hit Create Album, and then hit Done. So now it's going to add it to that album. So I'm just going to upload it and then hit Upload. So then if I go to my albums, I should have created a new album called Camera Raw, and there's my two photos. So then if I needed to share it to me, let's say I was traveling, I can click this little share button, Put my email in here. And then put my name in period. And then hit share. And then I would get an email sent from you saying you shared the album to me. Make sure you guys follow me. So again, if you search under people, go to Justin Bartels and hit search people. And make sure you're following this account with this photo. It says pro if you're signed into a different account. And it should have a lot of photos here. This was an old account, so ignore that. This is the one you want to follow. Cool, so that's it for today. I showed you how to share photos through Flickr, how to edit photos and save them in Camera Raw. Alright, thanks guys. Have a good day.